Okay. Live on Facebook. YouTube, have you caught up yet? Yep, live on YouTube. We are live everywhere. Broadcasting to the entire world. And that means it's time for the music. From the studio, in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary, at the foot of Mount Belzoni, sequestered as we are, this is the Triangle Talk. Once again, don't try to ad-lib during the music. This is the Triangle Talk Show. It is episode 83, April 14th, 2020. It's going to be a politics episode. Vote Biden with a question mark. By mail? Vote Biden by mail? Well, I guess that's going to be the question. And I got a guest here to talk about that, which is a good thing because I'm pretty worn out. I'm Gary Pierce, just another podcaster. Got a guest coming up in just a moment. Friend of the show, friend of mine, one of my Facebook friends who's very prolific. His name is Chris Teleska, and Chris. I'm gonna pull up one thing that he said recently on his Facebook page before I actually get to introducing you, Chris. This is something you put up this morning. I'm not endorsing Biden until either the DNC convention delegates vote for Biden as the nominee, or there's some other process for determining the nominee that follows the DNC bylaws. I will not tolerate nor remain silent over more cheating, lying, rigging, and stealing. Until then, Bernie Sanders. I will support the working group. I'm not sure what that is, unless it's apparently a con job. I'll vote for our party's eventual nominee, but I'm not risking my life to go vote if we don't have a deal on a real progressive agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Teleska. Hey, Chris, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you, sir?
Did I read that with the feeling that you had going into it?
No, I was really pissed off. But here's the
okay. It could have been more energetic.
Yes. I've been actually talking to a lot of Bernie people who always give me grief about being a little too passionate. And in one telephone call, a female Bernie-crat was dropping more F-bombs than I've done in a long time. So, anyway.
Okay, so if I understand where things are right now, Bernie has endorsed Joe Biden.
Yes.
And Barack Obama endorsed Joe Biden earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
All the other candidates that had been running had endorsed Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your heartburn?
Well, I definitely saw this coming. Bernie hired a lot of the same DNC drones to work on his campaign that he hired in 2016. Okay. There were a lot of great people who were super Bernie volunteers in 2016 that, kind of over the years worked on campaigns and such. And, they were really hoping that, hey, when Bernie's raising all this money, hopefully he'll hire people to work for him who really believe in him or really support him. And for those people, it wouldn't be just another job, but that didn't end up happening. And the weird thing is some of those people ended up, going to work for Bloomberg, and we all know how well that worked out. But, Biden didn't have much of a campaign. Biden didn't have a ground game. Biden was almost broke. Biden came in third or fourth or fifth in some of the earlier states. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in a state he really didn't have a ground game in, South Carolina, he wins. And, I know Clyburn endorsed him, but there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. not only in South Carolina, but in North Carolina and a lot of other states, party officers were, basically supporting Biden and working all their little networks and things like that. And people who, they just thought that Biden was, even though he had no money and didn't have a lot of support and didn't have a ground game, that he was somehow more electable. And then all of a sudden, after Super Tuesday, you got Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar over here who pull out and endorse Biden. And you got Warren who pulls out, doesn't endorse anybody for a real long time. Don't think she really has endorsed anybody.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen an endorsement from Warren.
Yeah. But everybody was talking about Barack Obama.
He was going to wait until it was obvious. Well,
he was going to wait to endorse, but it didn't mean that there wasn't a lot of behind the scenes string pulling. Obama didn't want Bernie, and Obama didn't care what the rest of us wanted. He didn't want Bernie. He was going to, move heaven and earth to make sure Bernie wasn't the 2020 nominee. Because let's face it, once you are bought, you stay bought. I mean, Obama's worth 30 times more than he was after he's in president and before he was president. And, a lot of that is, he kind of got to stay bought.
Who bought him?
I wonder why, if Biden was such a good choice now, why didn't, Obama pick Biden in 2016? I mean, he was his vice president, for Pete's sake. If you wanted a continuation of what you had done, why wouldn't you pick your VP? Well, it's because he had, made a deal with Hillary in 2008.
So who bought Obama?
All the people who give him money. I mean, he's got a presidential foundation, so a lot of money comes in, and it goes to his staff. I can't hear you.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. I just saw your lips move. Sorry.
We got some latency going on here.
Hospitals, big pharma, all the people who pay him, what is it, $400,000, $500,000 for a speech, the book deal, all that stuff.
So the corporate political complex.
Yes. The same people that wanted Hillary to be president in 2016, the same people that wanted Biden to be president now. I mean, Biden said, hey, status quo Joe, hey, you've got billionaires. Nothing's going to change for you.
So, how is, I mean, I can tell you haven't been a Biden fan, no question about that.
No.
But and most of the rest of the candidates worked their way toward the center. The only one that was clearly progressive would have been Elizabeth Warren, mm-hmm. and Bernie.
Yeah.
How do you choose between those two?
How did I choose between those two? Well, I basically made a chart. Okay. And I looked at all the things that were important to me, and I ranked all the candidates as to where they stood. For some of them, it wasn't tough. Biden was always down at the bottom of my poll, or of my chart, along with Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, and Amy Klobuchar. Some of the rest were, I'll call it, unknown quantities. I mean, Marianne Williamson, just a little, unrealistic. I like some of Yang's stuff, but again, there were some of these people they just didn't seem to really have a clue how this is done. I had high hopes for de Blasio, my paisan, mayor of New York City, a real Democrat, unlike the other one, and
he never had any traction though.
Well, who you mean? Well, I know that's
de Blasio.
He didn't have any traction. for the longest time, everybody thought that Biden was the one to beat, and Bernie was the one to beat. And when it became obvious that Bernie was the one to beat, that's when Bloomberg got in a race. I think Bloomberg got in a race with the promises of all that money, to basically tear down Bernie and build up Biden. Because if he couldn't build himself up, he was definitely going to tear down Bernie and he was going to build up Biden. And that's exactly what ended up happening. And when Biden won South Carolina and, Bloomberg didn't do squat in all those other states, he bailed. Now he spent $500 million doing that and promised jobs through October and November to all those people who he hired. And then he lied and welched on those jobs.
Did he do that? I didn't hear.
Yeah. All the jobs are over with. I think either at the end of February. It was probably no. It was at the end of March. And by the way, so all the people who worked at Bloomberg headquarters in New York who gotten sick from the pandemic virus, their health insurance is over with, and at the end of March. And so all those people who thought that they were going to get jobs and MacBook Pros and iPhones and catered lunches and stuff like that, for their last paycheck, they ended up getting docked for the iPhones and MacBook Pros because he doesn't want them back.
Yeah.
They were all infected.
Or maybe. So where do you get all this information? I didn't even hear that on MSNBC.
Well, I've posted it. If you go to my Facebook page, I've posted, that, Bloomberg laid off his staff, all these people he promised that were going to be working for him.
Where did you get that? Where did you learn it?
I mean, it's all over the web, I subscribe to a bunch of different, blogs, The Intercept.
I mean, are these like whack job places, or are they got some gravitas to them?
They definitely have some gravitas to them.
Okay. I mean, I don't get around that much. For a major influential podcaster here at the Triangle, I don't get around that much.
Well, these are things, that I've subscribed to over the years. When being the progressive pit bull was fashionable back in 2004 and 5, I was subscribing to all these things, and nobody ever accused me of having a tinfoil hat, But now that the neoliberals have taken over the Democratic Party again, from the Howard Dean people and the Jerry Meek people,
the neoliberals, the limousine liberals, I mean, you've got people who, they're very socially liberal, but they're economically conservative. Yeah.
And
I would sort of describe myself that way now and then. Not now, maybe, but I have.
Well, I mean, here's the way I look at it. Okay, a lot of the people who were running for president until they dropped out at the end of February, beginning of March, like Nixon and Eisenhower would, if they, miraculously got dropped down out of the sky and could run for office today, their platforms would be to the left of most of the Democratic candidates. Pro-union, right? Okay, pro-foreign aid, pro-minimum wage, living wage. Not saying I'd vote for Nixon. He's a crook. I mean, he had a lot of other things.
He said straight out he's not a crook.
No, man, he's also a politician, so he lies like he breathes. So and honestly, I don't trust any politician, Democrat or Republican. I've been lied to so many times by them. They said, well, Obama said that he'd give us the, names and contact information of all his volunteers for 2008. He told us he'd give us that if we gave them all of the volunteers for the Democratic Party. And by that, I mean all the precinct officers, all the SEC members, all the county officers, district officers. And we gave them that information. Okay. And then he said, okay, well, after the election, we'll give you all our volunteers.
In North Carolina.
And the reason that they gave us nothing is because either Axelrod, Pluff, or Messina said, well, maybe like 10% of our volunteers are not Democrats, so we're not going to give you anybody's name. So wait a minute, you got all these names in a spreadsheet. Just take all the U's and the I's and the R's and whatever. Just take them. Just don't give us them. We need these people to get involved in the Democratic Party, to become precinct officers, to work on campaigns, to work on coordinated campaigns. And they lied. So in 2012, when OFA came back and said, well, we need all your volunteers, I said, screw you. Put all your volunteers' names in escrow. Stick them in a thumb drive, and put them put it in David Parker's desk drawer or something like that. That's the only way I'll trust you. And of course, they welched on that as well.
So what position did you have in the Democratic Party back then that you were making these requests?
Well, it wasn't so much I was making those requests, but I was asking my county party leaders, my district party leaders. And I was actually at the time, then and now, I was on the state executive committee. I was the secretary of the 13th congressional district. So I would ask my district chair, who was a very good friend of mine, Jesse Gosselin, hey, Jesse, when you guys are, having your state executive council meetings, right? When you and all the other district chairs get together with the state party officers, make sure that when they're working with OFA, that they ask for that information and they put it in escrow. Oh, you can't do that. You have to trust them that they'll give us the stuff after the election, like they did in 2008. Nope, I don't believe them. And of course, then I had another position with the party that wasn't really gone into all that much. I was a sergeant at arms. I was working in many ways that, whenever they'd have a meeting, I would, tell people, well, the water fountain's down there, the bathrooms are down there, here's the seats for the members, here's the seats for the guests. But another thing I was doing was helping with security for the party, to make sure that stuff wasn't getting stolen.
Okay,
and that was a hell of a gig.
So you've been seeing things in the North Carolina Democratic Party from the inside, and a lot of stuff you don't like what you see. Oh
no, I don't. No, I was sergeant at arms for 3 years. From right after David Parker, there was a coup attempt to get Parker out of being state party chair in May 2012. It failed because we outed the instigators. They were the political consultants who wanted taxpayer checkoff money, which they weren't getting. And then I was also the sergeant at arms when Randy Voller was chair. And when Voller fired Robert Dempsey, who was the ED of the state party for a while, from June 2013 through February 2014, I was the person who he called to come down and have Casey Mann's back when the locksmith was coming in to, change the locks on all the, outer doors and offices.
Party intrigue.
Well, yeah, it's for some reason, I don't know why, but everybody felt that a certain element in the Democratic Party thought I was, I'd beat people up and shoot porn for a living, and that meant that I was like a wild man down there, and they had reason to, Teleska's down there watching the front door, oh man, we're not going to be able to get in.
Are you saying you do beat people up and shoot porn for a living? That's your...
No, I don't shoot porn, but none of those things I do except for the sheer joy of it.
Okay.
And I haven't beat anybody up in a real long time.
So meanwhile, back to Bernie and Biden.
Yeah.
So you're still holding out hope for what to happen?
Well, Bernie said this on the day when he did his little podcast or broadcast that he was, withdrawing from the race, or suspending his campaign, I think is the official term. He said, well, listen, I want people to still vote for me because I want to be able to go into that DNC convention with delegates so I can, have votes on the platform, right? Which makes perfect sense. We did that with Howard Dean back in 2004.
It makes sense, but does anybody care? I mean, does the platform ever mean anything?
Well, now you see, typically the platform doesn't mean anything. And it's like, see, here's the thing, which is really weird. Think about this. All these Democrats from the precincts all the way up through the county conventions, district conventions, state conventions, they all get together and they all vote on these platforms, right? And then they turn around and they are told that they have to vote for and work to elect candidates who don't give a damn about the party platform. See, for me, the platform is, if you want a D behind your name and you want to run for office as a Democrat, you need to stand for that party platform. You need to work to turn that party platform into public policy, right? If you got your own agenda, the big donor agenda, why should I kill myself? Why should I risk my life, poll greeting in a pandemic to get you elected if you're only going to turn around and stab me in the back?
Okay.
This is what the establishment conservatives don't like us talking about. They don't like us talking about what does it mean to be a Democrat. You have a platform here, but then you got the candidate's own agenda. And half the time when the candidate says, I'm going to put on my good sturdy work shoes and go out and march in a picket line, they're lying.
What's a conservadem?
Well, okay.
I mean, I can guess, but I'd rather have you explain it to me.
Well, I mean, you've got people who, they're socially liberal, but they're economically conservative. Like, how many Democrats in North Carolina in the General Assembly, now or even back in 2010, believed in collective bargaining, believed in a living wage, believed in unions, believed in workplace health and safety. Okay? So, a conservative is what I guess Rob Christensen would call a business progressive Democrat, like a Jim Hunt Democrat. Hell, a Roy Cooper Democrat, Think of how many really bad policies that we've had in North Carolina, that we've done for, because Duke Power wants it, or Big Pharma wants it, or the oil industry wants it, or the big ag wants it, So I'd say, yeah, these are sort of a conservative is someone sort of on the, right of center of the Democratic Party. I'm definitely leftist.
Yeah. So they're not a Republican. Would they be welcome in the Republican, not today's Republican Party, but 10 years ago?
Well, like I'll give you an example. Andrew Cuomo, the guy who's often, his name is being whispered about his, if for some reason something happens to Joe Biden, if he catches the flu, if his wife decides he's too old and senile to run for president, they're going to drop Biden and bring in Cuomo, right?
He for anyone, probably everybody knows who he is, but he's the governor of New York. The current Rudy Giuliani of the coronavirus pandemic.
Yes. Anyway, if you've studied Cuomo's career over the years, I mean, he's a very passionate Democrat about certain things, but he was supporting Republicans in the state so that he could, veto progressive legislation. He had these progressive Democrats over here on the left who were passing, better collective bargaining, minimum wage, this, that, and the other thing. And Cuomo is propping up these Republicans over on this side so that he has a, so he doesn't have there isn't a veto-proof majority, right? In other words, he has just enough Republicans to make it so that it's, if I sign that bill or if I veto that bill, then, these guys are not, are going to, not vote to override my veto.
So he was actually promoting getting some Republicans into the state legislature.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was aggravating the hell out of Democrats in New York. Cynthia Nixon, Zephyr Teachout all ran against him, saying, "Look at this crap he's doing," and he called himself a Democrat.
Okay. Are there any truly progressive Democrats in North Carolina currently holding office or recently?
There are a couple.
You're not going to call Cooper one, right?
No. Verla Insco definitely is one, and I've known Verla for years.
A senator, a
state house member.
State house, okay. From where?
Orange County.
Okay.
Yep.
Why am I not surprised?
Yep. There are a couple of progressives up in the western part of the state, up in Buncombe County, Asheville area.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. In order for you to run for most of these seats in the General Assembly, you got to go through either the House caucus or the Senate caucus. And the House and the Senate caucus are all about, raising money, and they're definitely not about making waves. And
was Erica Smith Cunningham's opponent in the primary? Is she a good progressive?
Well, actually, I mean, no. He voted. I hate to say this, but there are a lot of Democrats who, on certain issues with the budget, they would vote to support Cooper, but on other things, they would vote with the Republicans. In fact, we had a lot of people. Our lieutenant governor candidate if you look at her voting record, oh, good Lord, it's terrible. Or the Democrat running for lieutenant governor, good Lord, what was her name? Yvonne Hawley, right? Okay, you look at her, and you look at Terry Van Dyne. Terry had the much more progressive voting record, right? But she didn't win, and I don't think she didn't win because Democrats haven't really done a great job in the last couple of years of get out the vote for primaries.
Yeah, and I have no idea how any of these people win or don't win because nobody knows who they are.
Well, that's the other thing. No one really knows who they are. And the people that they hire to work for them, that's their job, right? But they're not doing a great job. Why aren't they doing a great job? Because they know that this is their job right now, but if they want to get another job next year or 6 months from now or 2 years from now, whatever the hell it is, they can't disappoint the donors. See, because really the consultants and the political operatives, they don't actually work for the candidates. They work for the donors. The money is just laundered and filtered through the party and the campaigns.
So you wouldn't mind seeing corporate money, PAC money, get out of politics?
I want to see what they do in Europe. I want to see them, like, if you get enough signatures on a petition to run for office, you qualify for public money. and that's all the money you get to spend.
Okay.
You get to spend another dime, and
now,
no PACs get to spend it for you either.
Now I'm seeing two tracks here. One is the political, just the policy, that what kind of things they support, and the other track, which is not too far away, they're pretty close to each other, is the corruption side, the bought and paid for side. Well, because I guess you're saying that their political policies are bought and paid for.
Pretty much, yeah.
And the public's not seeing that until they watch this show.
Some people in the public see that, but then, you have a lot of political theater. I think almost everything on mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN, the main news networks, Fox especially. I mean, that's like, I tell a joke. I look for a bill cap around here someplace. I say, when I go down to South Carolina, I feel like I want to take my cap and I want to turn the bill around backwards and drop my IQ by 20 points. So it's like when I watch Fox, that's what I feel like. I feel like, oh my God, this is just so dumbed down. People believe this crap. How they do that, I have no idea. But it takes me back to when I was in the 9th grade. I had to I was the photographer for my school newspaper. And for some reason, we got a new yearbook newspaper advisor. The old one went away and got married. And the new guy was a brand new, journalism teacher from UNC Chapel Hill. And he expected everybody to produce something in writing, even the photographer, right? Saying like, so I got to do twice the work everybody else does. I got to take pictures of all these events, and then I got to write articles. Yes, you do.
No,
all right.
You took pictures and you wrote articles, which meant you did 1 1/10 more work, because taking pictures is easy.
Bullshit. Sorry, not.
Okay, that's okay. You can say
anyway,
that. I got an explicit button I'd be happy to push, and you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Good. Awesome. So, anyway, Mr. Covington was the advisor's name, and I remember having to rewrite my book review I don't know how many times, because what he kept telling me was that the average 9th grader in North Carolina read at a 5th grade level. And I had to keep dumbing my book review down to the 5th grade level.
So the same level that Trump reads.
Pretty much. Except my book review didn't have pictures, like, comic books.
All right, so you had to keep dumbing them down for your fellow high school students.
Well, 9th grade, it was the last of 3 years of junior high school, 7th, 8th. They didn't do the whole middle school, high school thing like they're doing right now. They did elementary, which was through 6, 7, 8, 9 was junior high school, and high school was 10. So anyway, I did. So I was, I decided I'm never going to work on a school newspaper again, because the last thing I want to do is run into some other, recent, college graduate who wants me to not only take pictures, but also write articles. Screw that.
So back to photography then.
Yes.
All right. So, I'll explain where I come from, and tell me how this hits you. First of all, I voted for Warren, which probably doesn't give you too much heartburn.
Not really, no.
I didn't want to vote for Biden, because he's a little too old, and I don't like any politician that builds a rabid throng coalition. Where people just love him too much. And there's only 2 politicians currently out there right now that are doing that. That would be Sanders. Did I say Biden? I meant Sanders.
Yeah.
Sanders and Trump. People get very upset at me when I say that they have some things in common. Not a lot, but they got a few things in common. Sanders and Trump. And one of them is that they are they have a cult-like following. Would you Does that sound fair to you?
Well, I would say the reason why Bernie has a cult-like following is because he's basically been the same dude for 40 years, at least as long as I've been aware of Bernie Sanders, and I've been aware of Bernie since my friend Dr. Rosen, Alan Rosen, in UNC Chapel Hill, followed this girl he liked around the pit in Chapel Hill, and she went over to the DSA booth, and he went right up behind her. And the reason he did it is because he wanted to, when he signed up on the list, he wanted to memorize her name and her phone number. Doug Berger did that same shit back then too, but he won't admit to it. Anyway, so Alan and Mimi are married now, but I remembered, they were very dedicated socialists, and they kept telling me about this guy from Burlington, Vermont. This is back in the late 70s, okay?
Yeah.
That, you're going to watch out for him. He's going to go places. Bernie Sanders. Bernie's been the same guy, the same pro-labor, guy all these years, okay? And that's the thing I like about Bernie. Hell, even his enemies, his people who hate his guts, say he's the most consistent politician. The Republicans say he's the most consistent politician.
Yeah, that's what people say.
And it's like now more than ever, a lot of the stuff that Bernie has been trying to sell and talk about over the years, single payer health care. Oh wow. If I get sick with the COVID-19 virus, it's gonna cost me $90,000. Where the hell am I gonna get that from? Right? If I lose all my work, and I'm actually, as a photographer, there's a certain season for the work that I do, and now is the season that I get a lot of deposits for work. Guess where those deposits are right now? Flushed down the toilet because of this coronavirus epidemic, right? I have no photo work other than a little bullshit corporate industrial work, which I'm grateful for, but I don't have any weddings, I don't have any political meetings that I have to photograph. I don't have any business conferences. None of that stuff. I don't have any of that stuff because nobody's meeting in person anymore. Okay, so
maybe you could get paid for going out and taking pictures of people who are violating social distancing.
Well, first of all, they couldn't pay me enough to go out and photograph a bunch of sick people like that.
You got a zoom lens.
Unless they unless they were going to pay for me to get, basically a hazmat suit, scuba gear, and I'd shoot it probably with a point and shoot camera that after I took the card out, I'd throw the camera away.
Yeah. And then you don't have the health insurance to recover with.
Well, not anymore. Thank you, Barack Obama. I used to have affordable health insurance through Blue Cross Blue Shield, but when the ACA jacked up the cost of my insurance, so that way, what's more expensive, my mortgage or my monthly premium for my health insurance that even if I got sick, I couldn't afford to use? So I had to give up one of those. And, there's no point in being a homeless guy with great health insurance. So I went the other way.
And just be careful.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, I don't think I quite got to the end of where I stood. So, not a big fan of Bernie, cause old and cult. But since I voted for Warren, I'm not too far off of his track, in terms of policy.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm more liberal than I think I am. I like the idea of single payer. I'm not a single issue voter, but that's, one of the biggies. And I don't, one of the things that helped me with Warren was that she came off of the stridency on single payer just a little bit, recognizing that that's probably not going to be a strong selling point with the electorate in 2020, maybe in 2024, but not quite yet. Because people have been sold this bill of goods about their health insurance. They love their health insurance, except when they have to try to use it and then they hate it.
Or if they've lost it because they've lost their job.
Well, not enough people are in that category yet.
Oh,
wait a month.
Jobs. OmniDemand health insurance through their jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's something I've realized that's a really stupid system. Why is that the system?
Well, the system, because that's what we had after World War II. I think Nixon even tried to change it. Truman tried to change. Yeah, Truman tried to change it. Nixon tried to change it, and the AMA was just too strong at the time.
It was a baby at the time, but I guess a strong baby.
Well, the AMA has been around for a while.
The AMA wasn't a baby. The health insurance system was a baby, but if they had the AMA was foursquare in that corner, then see the problem.
Well, I think that the doctors just they were something. You don't want to be like working for socialists, do you? And I guess not.
I guess the doctor's issue with single payer is that they don't think that the payer is going to pay enough.
Well,
otherwise, to them is guaranteed income. They're going to get paid. But
I have a funny story to tell. The only reason I've actually had to change physicians over the years is because my physicians retired. Okay. I had a physician over at Duke University Medical Center. He retired, and then I found out that Duke had a private practice thing right up the street from me. Literally, I could walk there if I wanted to. And I got this one great doctor, and he knew that I was working on either not so much campaigns, but I was working on coordinated campaigns. And there were certain times of the year when I start working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And I'd in late September, early October, I'd give him a call and I'd say, "Hey, Dr. O'Rourke, I need to come see you because I'm starting to get a little under the weather with something. Could you come in and see me and, diagnose me, whatever." And so he got used to it over the years. And so in 2008, it was really funny. He was laughing about this. And he said, "So what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm working for the Democratic Party in Wake County. I'm working at a sign shop, putting together the site cards and, and bundling all the signs and all that stuff. And I'm also, working on poll greeters." And he said, "Well, yeah, I'm really trying to get, Barack Obama signs, but I can't find them, right? I can't find Barack Obama signs." And I said, "Well, I've got a few extra Barack Obama signs. Let me bring them over to you." So he said, "Great." And he said, "Well, you know what? My asthma meds, were going to cost me, I don't know, I think by this time, with all the co-pays, close to $100 a month, right?" So he literally went into his closet of samples and brought me out 2 months worth of samples of drugs. So I traded him, for him, his 2 sons and 1 daughter, enough Obama signs that they gave me 2 months worth of meds. So when I went to tell the OFA people what I traded the Obama signs for, they were all pissed off. How much we could have charged for those signs? It's I don't care.
What's an OFA?
Obama for America.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was Obama's campaign. And then it became Organizing for America.
They were selling the signs?
They didn't want to do business. They didn't even want to give the Wake County Democratic Party or any other Democratic Party signs for all the early voting sites and all of the precinct voting sites for free, like almost every other campaign does. I would contact all the campaigns, this back in 2008, say, "Okay, we have this many precincts, this many early voting sites. We need this many of your signs for the primary, bare minimum. If you want us to put up more than 1 sign at a particular location, you got to tell us that," right? But we would bundle up all the signs to go out at each individual precinct and each early voting site, and we would give them to the precinct chairs or other people, and they would put them out there. That's what we used to do in order to get greater voter turnout for these primary elections, right? And there's a lot of excitement around getting people to get out and vote at the primary. But lately, I don't know if it's just because we got these crappy, March primaries, but Hell, the Democratic Party doesn't even want to get people excited to go out for those. Why is that? Because low turnout aids the incumbents. Low turnout helps establishment candidates.
Yeah, in the primary. Yeah.
Yep.
And in the general, low turnout aids Republicans.
Pretty much, yes. See, that's the weird thing. They really want us to. They kind of work the polls if you have to get like the names of people to volunteer to help us out in the general. That's what they really care about now. But see, when Jerry Meek was chair of the state Democratic Party, and I was one of Jerry's kids. That's what we called ourselves back then. Remember Jerry Lewis with the telethon?
Yeah.
We used to call ourselves Jerry's kids. Jerry's kids. We're also Howard Dean people. We worked our butts off to get Jerry Meek elected, the state party chair, and then Jerry got a 100-county, ground game going. Right? We had Democrats. We had a Democratic Party active in parts of the state that hadn't seen one for decades, and we started winning in those counties. But you know what? We also had people who were conservatives who actually had worked out deals with Republicans in their counties to say, look, we'll not challenge you in some of these counties in the northeastern part of the state for federal office, right? If you'll leave our judges and magistrates and other people like that alone, right? That's one of the reasons why, for a long time, if you go to the 3rd Congressional District of North Carolina, and you go back a couple of years, you look to see how come they never ran anybody in some of those races? Because the people in the party in those parts of the state, they had their friends running for judges, they had their friends being magistrates, they had their friends being dog catcher or God knows what, and they didn't want to lose those seats, right? And they weren't running as progressive Democrats anyway. They were running as basically Dino Dems, Democrats in name only, or they were the
worse than a conservative
light wing. They're the same thing, I mean, you go to some of these parts of North Carolina that Democrats have held in office. I mean, you would look and see, gee, you got these hog lagoons, these coal ash pits. How is it that enlightened progressive leadership would allow these garbage pits to be right next door to where people live?
Are they Democrats down there?
There are Democrats down there, but the people who usually lead them are I call them Democrats in name only.
I mean, there are Democrats in office down there, in state offices.
But they're still very, very conservative. You go to, remember a couple of months ago you had Elizabeth Crudup on the program? Okay, and we were talking about they used to actually have North Carolina Democratic Party used to be named after a racist old red shirt who was a former governor and senator of North Carolina.
The Dixiecrat era.
It was the Jim Crow era. Yep. Okay, so in the mid '90s, they ended up. Hang on for a second. They ended up getting some money to redo North Carolina Democratic Party headquarters, right? To fix stuff that's kind of fallen apart. And all of a sudden, the grandson of this old Jim Crow racist Democrat says, I'll give you $1 million if you guys name the headquarters building after my gramps. They said, sure, why not? And it was named after him until it was early last year after Elizabeth had her council of review hearing, and they finally ended up, no pun intended, taking a white paintbrush and whiting the guy's name out. How appropriate. Whiting the guy's name out. And they took his portrait down. But here's the weird thing. They actually have a fundraising dinner back in his home county, still named after him, in 2020. At least they had it in 2019. I don't know if they'll change it in 2020. But, it's like, hey, We don't have a Jefferson Jackson dinner in North Carolina anymore. We don't have Vance Aycock anymore. Why should we have, party fundraising events named after either slaveholders or old Jim Crow racists?
Yeah. But it's not that long ago that the Democratic Party was the conservative party in the South. In the 60s into starting to change over in the 70s, in more rural parts of the state, probably holding over into the 80s and even later. And that's what it sounds like I'm hearing you talk about now, is that's...
Well, if you were to read The Paradox of Tar Heel Politics by Rob Christensen, he's actually saying that amongst southern states, North Carolina was a lot more progressive because it was better for business to be more progressive than it was to be, George Wallace and, segregation now, segregation forever, and to have Ku Kluxers running up and down, down the street. That didn't, in Raleigh, that didn't mean that we didn't have that Ku Klux Klan welcome you to Smithfield sign out in, Johnston County until not that long ago. In fact, I remember in 1972, my parents moved us here from upstate New York. And, we're going to go to Raleigh. We got the city schools and the county schools. The city schools were black. The county schools were white. They put me and my sister and brother in their private schools. Okay, whatever. And then towards the end of this first summer we were here in 1972, my mom and dad wanted to take us down to the beach, right? And we go down to Wrightsville Beach, and on the way down to Wrightsville Beach, we drive through Smithfield. And I'm looking, and there's this billboard with the fiery cross and the idiot in the hood and all that. I'm thinking, where did you bring us to? That these people can have a billboard, off the side of the road. Good God. I ran into other silly shit over the years like that. Oof.
Yep. Yeah, again, in the rural areas, it has lasted a whole lot longer. Okay, so we kind of gotten off track, but that's okay. We can talk about anything. As I'm rounding out my own look at things, not a big Biden fan, that's for sure. I think he's also too old, and you haven't pushed the senile button on Biden. Your policy on him. Do you think he's showing signs of getting too old?
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't necessarily think it's signs of old. I think he's having some serious brain farts.
So that's not necessarily an age thing for you.
No. I mean, because there are some old people that are real sharp cookies.
Yeah. And Bernie's the same age, and Bernie seems powerful. Powerful.
Sharp as a pistol. Yes. My political mentor, P.R. Latta, was sharp as a tack until maybe a year before he died in 2014. He was 95, And hell, in 2008, when we were working, at the sign shop, PR was 6 years earlier, so he must have been 87, 88, 89. He was climbing in and out of his pickup truck, helping me pull tables out. And I thought, so when he climbed into the pickup truck to pull a table in, he actually jumped out of the back of the bed down to the ground because this is an 87-year-old guy doing this crap,
Yeah.
Anyway.
But we can't judge one person's ability, acuity by someone else who is able to do more at the same age. You judge everybody as an individual. And now I'm, looking at Joe, listening to him at debates, at press conferences, at discussions, and I'm not liking what I'm hearing.
Well, there's that, and then there's the whole creepy part of Joe Biden. Let me put it this way. If I'd have been an office holder and I'd have brought my 10-year-old daughter to some, a banquet or whatever, and Joe Biden copped the feel on her boob, sorry, Duke City Joe, he literally broke some 10-year-old girl's chest. And it just, I I don't even know where to begin with my disgust for Democrats who can overlook that crap, because it fits their paradigm somehow, you know. So it's the senility, it's the grabby, hair sniffing, you know, digitally penetrating stuff that just, you know, it's like, I'm sorry, didn't like it with Harvey Weinstein, didn't like it with, you know, Donald Trump, don't like it with Joe Biden. And by the way, where are all these Democrats that are asking Joe Biden, let's have some due process for Joe Biden? Where was Al Franken's due process, you know? Non-existent.
He could have fought harder for it, but he didn't.
Yeah, he did. Well, see, he fell on the sword. He did the right thing. And this is actually the reason why I don't think Biden's going to be our nominee, for several reasons. Number one, I don't think that there's actually going to be a convention where tens of thousands of people get together and are breathing on each other, even in August. I don't think that
it's looking like that can't happen.
Yeah. And so if they don't do that, then basically the DNC, not the delegates, but the actual, you know, super delegates will get together and pick somebody. And chances are it's not going to be Biden. I mean, you've heard Biden say, I want to pick a vice presidential candidate who can succeed me, right?
Hopefully soon.
Well, here's the thing. For the same reason that they're trying to coronate or anoint Joe Biden now, they want to get that out of the way so nobody will be voting for anybody else. They'll do away with all these other primaries and all these other delegates, right? And
well, the president isn't the only thing on the primary, so they can't.
Well, true. Well, see, that's the whole thing, but it's like, Well, here's the reason. You couldn't very well have the delegate selection process extend into September, but there are states, New York is one, Maryland is another, there are several others, that don't actually have their primaries for their, you know, congressional leadership and their state house and state senate people, right? They don't have them until September. And then for some reason, they go from September to November, and then they have their general elections. I don't know what we're going to do about this stuff. We don't have enough time in many states to go to absentee by mail, vote by mail, because that's a whole another kettle of fish. From maybe what you've read about what I posted, I'm a big in-person voting person. And the reason I'm that way is because there are so many more protections for in-person voting. First of all, it's anonymous in-person election day voting, it's anonymous. In-person early voting is not, because it's, absentee by mail. There's a number that they write on your application and on your ballot. So that way, if you show up on election day claiming to be Gary Pierce and saying, I'm here to vote today. Oh, but Mr. Pierce, you already voted early, either in person or early absentee. No, I didn't. That's bullshit. I didn't vote then. They can then go back and pull your retrievable ballot, right, and compare the signature on the application and say, Mr. Pierce, I think you're having a senior moment. Actually, you did vote back then. Or, no, this is like a Ford signature. Whatever.
Well, now that signature is not on the ballot. That's on a form that you go in and sign when you go in to get the ballot.
Right. But when you go in and vote early or you go vote absentee, you have an application and a ballot. Both of them have a retrievable number on them. So that way you can, if Gary Pierce claims he goes in on election day and says, I didn't vote early, right? Or I didn't vote absentee, they can actually go back and find your application, find your signature. And if they find out that, something's not kosher here, they can actually pull your ballot. All early voting ballots, whether it's in person or absentee, are by law retrievable for that reason.
Yeah,
okay?
I thought I saw something on there that seemed like it was going on both the application and the ballot.
Yeah,
that did look squirrely to me.
It would be two things. One, it would be your precinct number. They would know what precinct you voted in, because by law we have to do a 30-day sort of all the ballots, early voting and absentee ballots, by precinct. So you'd have the precinct number on there. In my case, it'd be 0142, and then it would be your unique identifying number that goes on the application and on the ballot. That way, they can pull your application and say, okay, Gary Pierce, here's your unique identifying number. Then they go through all the ballots, let's say, cast at Wake County main site on Salisbury Street, right? That's where you voted early. Hypothetically, they could go back and they could find that unique identifying number. Then they could run that through the scanner and then subtract those votes out. That's how they do ballot reconciliation.
Okay, so it sounds like you would like to see maximum in-person election day voting, minimum vote by mail.
No. With no COVID, with no pandemic, I'd love to see everybody voting in person, because there's too many ways that you can pull scams. Gee, like we did in the ninth
district, yeah,
county, right? The other thing, hey, in a pandemic, do I want my boss to say, do you feel lucky to have your job? Yes, I do. Well, I want you to fill out an absentee ballot application, and then you're going to bring your ballot in, and I'm going to show you how to mark it, and that's going to be at your annual employee evaluation to see if you get to keep your job or not. See, a landlord could pull that same crap too. It's illegal as hell, but that's one of the things that happens with absentee by mail unless you have the right safeguards for it. I'd love to see, with this pandemic, I want to see everybody vote by mail. I just want to see more protections and safeguards installed. I don't know that we can do that in North Carolina with the Republican legislature that we have.
Yeah, the scenario you just posited, I'm not sure how you get around that.
Well,
what you're saying is somebody has got their absentee ballot, and someone who has leverage over them is saying, bring it in. Let me see you mark it. I'll tell you who to mark it for, and stick it in the envelope and mail it in. How do you get around that?
Well, a couple of ways. Other states, for instance, like if you're in California, you have, when you register to vote, you can either register to vote in person or you can register to vote by mail, which means that you don't actually have to show up on election day to vote. You can just have your vote, have your ballot sent to you automatically. You don't have to make a special request. Once you register as a voter to vote by mail, all your ballots will be mailed to you. Okay? Or if you decide you want to vote in person when you register, and for some reason you're not going to be able to make it on election day, you can actually request an absentee by mail. California's got a lot of interesting voting innovations, and it's one of the reasons why it took them a month to certify the results of their California primary, because they've got so many different options to vote, and it takes them, if you vote by mail, you go stick your ballot in the mail on election day, it could take a week in order to get to you. And then they've got so many vote by mail ballots that it takes a lot longer to tabulate them and go through all the ballot reconciliation stuff. That's the reason why the vote totals aren't tabulated in California until they had their primary on the same day we did, March 3rd. That's why it took them until the end of March, early April, before they knew that Bernie won definitively that California primary, and they had a lot of provisional ballots they had to count too.
But what safeguards does that put in?
Well, see, that's the thing. Many different states. Washington State does 100% vote by mail. Oregon, Colorado, California does more vote by mail, but it's not 100%. A lot of these states, they've been studying it 4 years and implementing a 100% vote by mail program, it's not the kind of thing you can just do overnight. And you can do it in just a couple of months without having to spend billions of dollars to get it right. Okay.
Can we just follow their blueprint?
Well, you could, but it's going to take time, and we don't have that time. You wouldn't be able to set up the kind of 100% vote by mail system that Oregon and Washington have in the few months that we have left. And I not long ago, the State Board of Elections sent out a press release, which included a letter from the election director, Karen Brinson Bell. She's talking about trying to do more early voting, right? Because you see, here's the thing. Let's say in Wake County you have 206 precincts, but you've got 20 early voting sites. You might not be able to get all the people that you need to work all the polling places on election day, but you might be able to get people who can get out and work all, more of the early voting sites. So she's trying to do that, but she's also trying to expand absentee by mail. Here's what I would say. I actually didn't work at my precinct polling place this year as a poll greeter because for a variety of reasons I can't go into. I didn't trust what my government, Trump, was telling me about this pandemic coming over from China. And as it turned out, one of the first Wake County COVID-19 positive persons voted at my precinct, not on election day, but at early voting, the last day of early voting on Saturday, which is the day after I voted. So I have been working very hard since January to minimize my exposure to people that I don't know and don't necessarily trust. So do I think they'll be ready to vote again in person in November? No, I don't. And I didn't have a whole lot of trust in Biden telling people to go out and vote in Illinois and Wisconsin, right? He told people to just show up and vote. How insane is that? Now some people, there's actually a guy who worked as a polling judge in Illinois, in Chicago, and he died from it. So I'm not risking my life unless they're going to give me a hazmat suit, full suit gear, and have like a disinfecting shower when I leave the polling place. I ain't going in there. Yeah, I want to vote by mail. So
you can, just by asking for an absentee ballot, can they handle it if almost everybody asks for it that way?
Well, the steps that they have to go through in order to process an absentee ballot request, it's a lot more work. It's a lot more steps. I mean, literally, have you ever gone to a county board of election meeting and watched them count absentee by mail stuff?
No, I was invited, but I was in the middle of my cancer treatment, so it wasn't a good idea.
Well, yeah, definitely not. So they get these applications, and they process these applications here's the ones that are going to go through with no problem. Here's the ones that got a few issues, and here's the ones that we're not going to approve, right? And they literally give the whole stack of those applications to the Board of Elections people, and they just sit there and they flip through them. Oh, and imagine if they got COVID all over them. I'll flip it through there, and all the germs going through there, whatever. So you're not going to be able to do that crap anymore, right?
So, all right? So even best case scenario, it just means that we won't get a result on Tuesday night. It'll be days later. Well, definitely. But I mean, see, here's the thing. That way, now vote by mail, right? What's supposed to run out of money by June? The U.S. postal system. Trumpy didn't want to. He wanted to bail out Boeing. He wanted to bail out the cruise ships. He wanted to bail out the casinos. Doesn't want to bail out the U.S. postal system, right? So he wants everybody to go, except for all these old people, to go vote for him, and then they'll die,
I don't know what I don't understand people who support this guy, who support the Republican Party. Now, granted, the Republican Party does much better with absentee by mail than the Democrats do. And back about the time when the Republicans had just taken control in North Carolina, it's 2011, and they were talking about voter ID. And so the North Carolina Democratic Party says, well, we got to have a plan for absentee by mail. And I said, yeah, but remember, if we're going to have a plan for increasing the use of absentee by mail, we've got to have a plan for dealing with the fraud that will go along with it, the potential for fraud, like with McRae Dallas down there in old Bladen County, okay, and or the vote buyers, or the vote or the ballot bundlers, or whatever. You got to have a plan for that. You've got to be able to say, I'm one of these persons who says that the party ought to be able to go and say, okay, any of our voters request an absentee ballot, we ought to be telling them, if you want an absentee ballot, you got to request it, do it as soon as possible. Go to your local library if they're open. Go download it online, or call us up, and we'll go look you up on the State Board of Elections website, and we'll send you an application in the mail. Fill it out, send it back, boom. All that extra work, it's like, geez. On the other hand, if I just went and downloaded a voter registration form online, right, and registered to vote online and registered to vote by mail, you'd have to send me a ballot without all the other crazy crap. Why not do that? The Republicans won't do that. And remember, we're living in a state where, although we have a veto-proof majority for Roy Cooper, we don't have a majority. We can't just pass vote by mail like they do in other states.
Yeah, you didn't say that quite the way you meant it. The Republicans don't have a veto-proof majority anymore.
You're right. Yes, we don't have a veto-proof majority anymore. You're exactly right. Yes.
But we don't have a majority to be able to actually pass legislation.
Right. Yeah. So we can say, oh, look what they do in Virginia. The governor just signed a law that election day is a holiday and more early voting, and it's like, yeah, we need to do that here. Good. When you get a majority in Virginia, then knock yourself out.
Yeah, which they just got. So it'll be interesting to see what we get for this November, because we really don't know what the state of the state and the nation will be in terms of the virus. But the most scientific things that I'm hearing are that it's not going to be good. Trump thinks we can open the country in less than 30 days, and that doesn't seem reasonable to me.
Yeah.
So kind of held this out for the tail end, although as I was reading your Facebook post, you did say that you would vote for Biden.
Yep.
Hold your nose, I guess.
Hold my nose, and after I'm done, go take a long shower.
Yeah. And the way I look at that is,
if he's the nominee.
Yeah, if he's the nominee. The way I look at that is that, first of all, any president doesn't get very much of what they want done. Presidents don't have that much influence or power, especially if they don't have a solid majority in both the houses of Congress. Now, maybe we will end up with that. Maybe we won't. But the president can push for things all he wants or all she wants, and they don't get that much of it done. Obama didn't, even in the first half of his first term when he had Democratic House and Senate. So when you get all worked up about what a president's policies are, they're not going to get that much of it done. Even Trump hasn't. So I think I vote for a president in a party that is going to push things along in the direction that I'd like to see them go, knowing that it's not going to go very far in any one administration. So it doesn't bother me too much that I'm not getting the person I really wanted. And I don't fall in love with candidates. I never fall in love with candidates. Deliberately don't fall in love with candidates. I mean, like one more than another, but none of them are ever likely to do everything I want, represent everything I'd like to see. It's always going to be a compromise. So I'll have no problem. I won't even have to hold my nose. I won't have any problem voting for Biden. I hope he gets a vice president that can take over and do something good, because I'm not sure he's going to make it through a full term.
I don't think he's going to make it to November. I'll be honest with you. I just don't think. I don't think he's got it in him. I mean, I see him on the campaign trail. He can't tell the difference between his wife and his sister. You know, I mean.
Oh, come on, that's bullshit.
Well, hey, listen, his wife's a very attractive blonde. His sister.
He wasn't looking at either. I saw that video. He wasn't looking at either one of them very quickly. You know, he didn't look at his wife and think it was his sister, or his sister and think it was his wife. That, you know, that's just campaign crap that comes up. Well, but what I do get concerned about is that, and you know, there's some of this stuff that he has had a lifelong problem with stuttering, and so he has to focus more than most people on being able to talk. And there may be something to that, but I'm hearing an awful lot of going down one road for a half a sentence and realizing it's a dead end, and not very artfully backing his way out and going somewhere else. I deal with a lot of old people, and I see people going downhill, and I see him going downhill, and that bothers me.
I've been telling people that that's a real problem that I have with Joe Biden, and I've had it for, you know, I mean, when he seriously decided he was going to run in 2020, obviously when he did this in 2019, I said, I don't, Trump's going to eat him alive.
Well, I worry about that too. I think,
not just on that, I mean, you know, and then of course there's also these stuttering hands, you know, that stuff. You know, I think, I don't know if you saw my post on stuttering hands.
No.
Well, anyway,
Facebook shows me a lot of what you put out, but not everything.
It's the whole groping thing. No, I don't feel good about Biden's mental capacity right now. I just don't. And I've said it. I focus more on policy stuff. But I mean, yeah, I've been very clear that I think he's got some, you know, mental capability issues that I'm not comfortable with, which is, I think, the reason why, okay, they got Mayo, Pete, Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, all to jump on board. And, you know, maybe they're hoping that if Biden fails, either the DNC will pick his vice presidential running mate, or they'll pick somebody else if Biden hasn't picked the vice presidential running mate. And also, and to be quite honest with you, you know, I'm sure Biden's probably getting the best medical care possible. His wife's a doctor, not a doctor, but a educational doctor. But she's at least knows that probably she can get him to a real doctor soon. And something happens.
Well attended.
He gets the virus. You know, what happens then? They're gonna have to pick somebody else. If Biden wins the nomination, I still feel if he wins, if they have a DNC, the delegates pick Biden, I still think that before Labor Day, they're probably going to end up having a DNC meeting, and they're going to pick a substitute.
Who do you think it might be?
Well, odds-on favorite seems to be Cuomo right now.
Won't make you any happier.
Yeah, definitely won't make me any happier. I think in many ways, you know, Cuomo's worse than Biden. You know.
So Biden said he would pick a woman for vice president. Who would you like to see?
Oh, well, AOC, but she wouldn't take it.
She old enough?
That's the other thing. She well, I don't, you know, I should know this, but I don't. I think that the qualifications for president or the vice president are the same as president, so I don't think she'd make that. I'll be honest with you. Everybody whose names that they've been floating, I'm not monumentally impressed with. I'm not a big fan of Klobuchar's. Definitely not a big fan of Harris's. Stacey Abrams has taken too much Bloomberg money. I'm not a big fan of hers. See, here's the thing. In our country, for some strange reason, you have a lot of black politicians that if you look at their voting record, okay, you look at who they support, they're supposedly representing a group of people who have been oppressed by the system, yet the African American electeds who represent them tend to vote with the oppressors. Not always, but a lot of the time. I mean, there are a few who are not like that, but I mean, I like what Stacey Abrams has done about voting equipment in Georgia, but I wasn't really impressed by her voting record and the fact that she endorsed Bloomberg just because he gave her all that money. Ugh.
Yeah, this is thin tightrope territory for a couple of white guys.
Oh, all right. Well, here's the thing. I don't mind walking out on like a tightrope. I have a very good friend of mine who is an officer in the AAC, and most of my friends understand this. That I'll argue with anybody. Okay, whether you're a friend, a girlfriend, a very super good friend, I'll if you say something stupid to me, I'll yell at you. Okay. Ask Jesse Gosselin if you don't believe me. Anyway, so me and this friend of mine were on the phone the other day. I'm saying, please explain to me why all these African Americans in South Carolina voted for Joe Biden. I mean, have they looked at Joe Biden's record on race relations, on job protections, workplace health and safety issues, things that have adversely affected African Americans, criminal justice, And so he says to me, well, you know what you got to understand. He starts talking about his father versus his mother. He didn't really like his father, but if he had to pick between his father and his mother, he would pick his father. Like, why would you do that, right? Or, do you understand about 400 years of racial oppression? And going like, so you would pick a white Democrat who signed all these oppressive laws, was against busing, signed a bankruptcy bill, all this other stuff like that, because of 400 years of oppression, whereas you wouldn't pick the guy who marched with Martin Luther King Jr. and who was for the kind of systemic reforms that would help the very people that you are supposed to be representing. He said, yes. I said, I don't understand that. That seems like ass backwards to me. And then he started to talk about, well, have you ever been into a black barber shop? And going like, no, I haven't. How is that going to help me understand why black people in South Carolina voted for Biden versus Sanders?
Because that's where they talk about stuff.
Okay, well, that's where they talk about stuff. Well, if you're in the black barber shop and you're talking about stuff, this last year, I've been working for the Salvation Army in Wake County, helping to raise money. And almost everybody who I drive out to a spot to ring the bell to raise money is African American. And so I asked them this question. They all know I'm very political. I asked them this question. So who are you going to vote for in the presidential election? This is like asking him this in December. So, well, it'll be the nominees. So, well, which of the nominees impress you the most? And a lot of them said, I didn't like Biden. I said, why is that? He says, well, even though he was Obama's vice president, They said this to me on the bus. He said, Obama didn't do shit for me. I started working for Salvation Army in 2010. By 2017, there was more need in the African American community than before I got active in this in 2010. There were more homeless people living out in the woods. There were more homeless people sleeping in sleeping bags, hiding under people's crawl spaces and front porches now than there was in 2010. And so I said, well, I'm going to ask you this question. I said, do you feel like, Barack Obama is, was a black president. Do you really feel well served by him? And they said, well, no, they did not. And I said, but you voted for him. He says, yeah, because we hoped he'd do a lot for us. He didn't end up doing.
Why do you think he didn't?
Well, I mean, let's face it. A lot of what helped Barack Obama to get elected was the party building that was done by Howard Dean from 2005 to 2009 or 2008. And as soon as Obama got to be the nominee, that party building stopped. And in fact, in Georgia, the 2008 Georgia Senate general election, Georgia's one of these weird states that says you have to win by a 50% plus one majority, even in the general, right? So they had some third party guy in there who mucked things up. Nobody got 50% plus one, so they had to have a runoff, right? But what happened? The Georgia Republicans brought in John McCain and crazy Sarah Palin to help get votes out for that Republican guy. They said 2010 and 2012 starts right here, and it did. What did OFA and the Democratic Party do to help the Democrat, who, by the way, was the plurality winner of that election? They didn't do shit for him. OFA didn't bring all their people, leave him in place. Well, we got to get this guy in Georgia elected. Obama needs a veto-proof majority. Or what he needed to have a super majority in the U.S. Senate. He had it in the House. He had it in the Senate. Right?
Okay, we're talking about Senate race down.
Senate race, the 2008 Georgia Senate race. OFA started calling the shots for the entire Democratic Party. They screwed the pooch. You remember when, who was it? What the hell was her name? She was the Massachusetts Attorney General. And she ran against the Playgirl pinup model, for the 2010. You remember when Teddy Kennedy died, right? And they had to have a special election in Massachusetts, right? Okay.
I've never paid that much attention to politics outside my local area, so I don't know.
No, the reason I remember this is because I had to go take pictures of an OFA rally. And this is, I think, in 2010. And I remembered the lady who was there from OFA bragging on how, if OFA didn't get involved in that race until the very last minute, right? And he said, when we got involved in that race, if we hadn't have gotten involved in the race when we did, she'd have lost by a bigger margin. And I wanted to scream across the room, you dumb fucks! If you'd have gotten involved in this race last year, she'd have won! I mean, they're proud of staying out until the last minute and losing by a smaller margin than she would have if they hadn't gotten involved in it all. This is why I didn't like OFA taking over the Democratic Party. We used to have a great logo for the DNC, and then after Obama got in there, they resurrected a discarded Obama logo that basically had a big O with a small D inside, as if the Democratic Party is smaller than the person of Barack Obama. And they just, they killed the Democratic Party. They dismantled the 50-state strategy. And, 2010, we lost governorships, lost General Assembly races, lost, House races, right? And then 2012, Obama won, but we lost all those governors, lost all those senators.
Yeah, no coattails.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, because it was all about the top of the ticket, and they didn't focus on what was needed in the parties everywhere else. Because, Obama thought, great, I'll be president for another 4 years. But what the hell did he get done? I mean, other than, Hillary was his Secretary of State and he got to bomb people.
All right. So it's fascinating being inside the mind of Chris Teleska.
No, it's not. It's scary.
Doesn't mean it's not fascinating. One last question before we go. You're going to vote for whoever the nominee is.
Yes.
Assuming it's Biden right now, but whoever.
Yeah.
Because we can't have another 4 years of Trump.
Correct.
Are a substantial number of the disaffected Bernie partisans going to do what you do, or are they going to do what they did 4 years ago?
Well,
and do you agree that 4 years ago they stayed home?
Well,
just enough numbers to hand it to Trump.
I don't know that I would agree with that. I think that the reason why Trump won those 3 states is not because Bernie people stayed home, was because Hillary's campaign didn't utilize resources effectively in those states. It's like, if you win by 16 million votes in California, who cares, right? You just got to win by 50% plus one, and bam, you're done. They knew California was going to be, but they still spent money there anyway. Why is that? Because there were big donors who live in California, and they want to see Hillary Clinton TV ads, right? Because that's what they paid for. Okay, and the consultants there, they also want to get jobs there. They didn't spend their money wisely. But here's the interesting thing about that. Back in 2008, about 25% of the women who were diehard Hillary fans didn't vote for Barack Obama in the general election. Only 12% of Bernie's people didn't support Hillary, right? So it was like half the number, half the percentage. So I don't think that was really a factor. But
where are they going this year?
Well, the reason why I'm supporting whoever the Democratic nominee is because I'm an officer in the Democratic Party. Most of the people who are Bernie supporters are not officers in the Democratic Party, although there are some officers in the Democratic Party who did support Bernie, who have basically been so disgusted by the crap that's gone on. Because, hey, I can see most of it. They can see some of it, but some of it they've seen disgust them. One guy, a good friend of mine and a very early member of the state Progressive Caucus, has basically resigned from his SEC seat, resigned as chairman of his county chapter of the Progressive Caucus, and is probably going to change his party affiliation. They are sick of this crap. But see, this is something that the Democratic Party doesn't want to talk about.
Change his party affiliation to what?
Green.
Unaffiliated? Green?
I don't know. Yeah, why do you think there are so many people who have changed their party affiliation away from D or R to something other than, like, either mostly unaffiliated? Why is that?
Which is what I am.
Okay. Well, a lot of people have changed their party affiliation because the way that the parties are running themselves are disgusting people. And it's like, well, gee, it doesn't matter how I feel. These big money donors are going to call the shots, and the party officers are going to, are going to do whatever the hell they're going to do. And that's it. I don't have a say. Why should I be a Democrat? Why should I be a Republican? Although in North Carolina, the party that's suffered the greatest number of, changes to unaffiliated has been the Democratic Party. Our party's been hemorrhaging voters for quite some time now. And, the party doesn't want to seem to do anything about it. The money laundering part of the party doesn't want to do anything about it. They're actually doing well. They're look at all the people who got jobs working for the resistance after Trump got elected, right? may not necessarily been able to get a job in government. You may not be able to get a job working to elect Democrats, but you sure as hell can get a job taking money from big donors to dump all over Trump, right? That's what the anti-Trump resistance is mostly about. I don't like Trump. I hate his guts. I knew he was a grifter and a con artist when I lived in New York City in the 80s. And I remember people were talking about when the Art of the Deal came out, oh, he'd be a great president one day. I'm looking like, what did you take, repeated shots in the head when you were growing up? Did you eat paint chips as a child? What happened to you, right? But he's a great con artist. And some people buy that crap. But on the Democratic Party, some people buy that Biden is somehow more electable, even up until South Carolina, he was not.
Early primaries are not good predictors.
Well, and that would be a great reason why we should have a one-day national primary. Screw this, drawn-out shit. It needs to be one day national primary. And if you don't have enough votes to get the majority of the votes, guess what? You have a runoff, and all the people who didn't make 15%, they go bye-bye, and then you get to have a debate or two, right? You get to see how the remaining candidates do, and the ones who dropped out because they didn't have enough supports, they could say, okay, fine. Do you want to endorse somebody? Yes or no? And who do you want to endorse? And then you have a runoff.
So that's a 2-day primary.
Yeah. I mean, basically it would be a general primary. It would be a main primary and then a primary runoff, or what they call a second primary.
Yeah. Or you could do ranked choice.
No.
Oh,
no.
Sorry. Hot button there.
Yeah.
All right. We got to go. But
right.
Fascinating stuff. Oh, before we go.
Yes.
Tell Bernie supporters who are currently stewing in their juice. Tell them what to do.
Well, Bernie's on the ballot in a whole lot of other states. What?
I'll say first of all, they're not going to let anyone tell them what to do. Tell them what your advice is.
Well, Chris Teleska's advice would be, whether you're still in the state that you have to have a primary, or you're in a state like North Carolina that's already had a primary, donate money to the campaign, work on trying to get people to vote for Bernie. Hell, in Wisconsin, where they weren't even running a campaign, Biden got, 55% of the votes. Bernie got 45%. In some states where Bernie's doing really, really well, he might actually outdo Biden. Okay? And the thing is, if you have a strategy to get more delegates for Bernie, to give him more leverage at the convention. Remember, Biden still don't have the 1,900 delegates he needs to have in order to be the clear winner. Right? He needs it. If he doesn't have it on the first ballot, then the super delegates will come in, and they'll probably vote for him. But if he doesn't have those 1,900 votes going in, hey, the race is still open. But remember, those delegates, if they have a DNC convention, will still go in and they'll still be doing platform stuff. And that's one of the things Bernie talked about last week.
Is when Bernie dropped out of the race, he still talked about gathering delegates.
He suspended his campaign.
When he endorsed Joe Biden, is that in essence releasing his delegates to vote for Biden?
Nope. That's not the same thing.
I mean, they would still have their independent input on the platform.
Well,
but
correct.
Could they vote for Biden, giving him the 1,900 he needs to wrap up the nomination?
Well, because remember, it's pledged delegates, right? Pledged delegates are the only delegates that count. Okay, so when you go into the convention, you have delegates who pledged for Warren, delegates who pledged for Buttigieg, delegates who pledged for Biden, delegates who pledged for Bernie, and they all go in like that. Now, I've never really seen this happen before, so I don't really know. Like, here's the thing: if you're a pledge delegate for Bernie, you said, "Fuck it, I'm going to vote for Biden anyway," right? What are they going to do? They're going to take away your secret decoder ring, you know? Okay.
They call them a faithless elector, I think.
No, a faithless elector. That's with the Electoral College.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that would be like somebody who is a Republican elector who didn't vote for Trump.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, wrong direction.
It's all right. I want to see them get rid of the Electoral College too.
Well, yeah,
but
I think that'd be a good idea.
Them doing that until, I mean, hey, listen, I want to see everybody vote on pre-printed paper ballots. Right. The only time I ever want to see anybody using a ballot marking device is if they're blind or handicapped or whatever, and they take the pre-printed ballot, shove it in the auto mark, boop, 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 press the buttons, do whatever, sippy puff tube, and then the auto mark gets marked, and you pull the ballot out and you shove it in the scanner. We had an opportunity this year to go 100% paper, and State Board of Elections, I don't know, I had hoped that Bob Cordell's Welch cow joke would have given us a state board chairman who knew what the hell he was doing. But I'm not all that convinced that Damon Sarkozy knows what he's doing. He's voted with the Republicans more times than not. What the hell did Cooper pick him for?
Wait a minute. First of all, you started a new show, and we've already done that show with Lynn Bernstein.
Well, anyway, so here's the thing. One of the reasons why I think the Electoral College is still valid is because you've got all these different ways for voters to vote and count votes and all that other stuff, ballot reconciliation. And so the Electoral College is like a check and balance on that. I would love it if we had one ballot, one voting machine, and one ballot style to use across the entire country. That would make things so much simpler. You'd have voter education that you could do with kids in elementary school and kids in high school and all that, right? There'd be no excuse for not knowing how to vote a ballot if you did that. But because we got all these crazy different voting, machines in some states, they have 10 or 15 different voting machines. North Carolina, we have, I think, paper, ESNS, touchscreen, and touchscreen heart intercivic. So,
we could still teach, because schools are local. We could still teach people how to do it. I don't know if they do or not.
I don't know why.
They didn't teach me when I was, but that was in the 1960s. So,
well, here's the thing: they actually did teach me how to vote. You know how they taught me how to vote back when I was in school? I took standardized tests with a pencil and an oval. So that's why when I went to vote, it was no big deal.
Same thing.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
It's just like taking standardized tests. Whoopee!
Okay. Once again, we gotta go. Your advice is: do vote for Biden. Don't vote for Biden.
Okay. In the general, vote whoever the nominee is. In the primaries, vote your conscience.
Of course.
For Bernie. I'm telling people vote for Bernie, and I can give people good reasons to vote for Bernie.
Yeah, but in the general, which is at least, this is the Triangle Talk Show. In theory, we're talking to people here in the middle part of North Carolina.
Yeah,
it is going to be vote for the nominee, and you're not sure who it's going to be, and I guess frankly, I'm not sure. Although I think I have a better idea than you're willing to go with. We'll see.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I said to myself when all this crap hit the fan with the COVID thing, I said, we're not going to have probably any more in-person meetings for the Democratic Party, at least in the state of North Carolina. There won't be any in-person state conventions. There won't be any in-person district conventions. There won't be any in-person county conventions. And they said, well, we're not really sure what we're going to do. And I said, come on. And I said, and you're probably not going to have, if you're going to do them online, you're not going to do them on the dates when you originally scheduled them. And lo and behold, people kept arguing, you know what you're talking about, we'll be able to do that. And going like, listen, No offense to the hardworking people who work for the state Democratic Party, but you got some people that can't paginate a 12-page meeting agenda correctly. How the hell are they going to do an online meeting with hundreds of people and still follow Robert's Rules of Order?
Are they going to get Zoom bombed?
Well, yeah, they probably will, because and I mean, here we are. We're about 10 days away from the Wake County Democratic Party convention when we're going to be electing delegates, and I think maybe a few other things. I don't even know how the hell they're going to do that. We don't have a procedure for it yet. But see, the thing is, in the state, this is a presidential year. All those meetings have to take place on the same day. That means that the state Democratic Party has to make sure that all 100 counties can have these meetings take place. Granted, some of these counties maybe have 20, 30, 40 people tops. Wake County could have as many as 900 to 1,000 people. How the hell are they going to do that online?
I don't know. That's a very expensive Zoom tier to buy.
Well, they may not do it with Zoom. They may do it some other way. But the point is, they have to have a way to make sure that everybody who wants to participate in the meeting can. Now, what do you do if you're somebody who doesn't have a smartphone? Or what do you do if somebody doesn't have a tablet? Or maybe they have a laptop that's old and doesn't have all the latest stuff. For instance, when I got onto Skype today to talk to you, Skype wanted me to upgrade something.
Well, yeah.
By the time I upgraded it, guess what? I couldn't log into Skype anymore. Oh, boy. So I had to go to Skype on the web. I had to do, and it wouldn't let me do it in Firefox anymore. Now I got to do it in Chrome. I said, holy shit, who has time to waste with all this crap? You know?
You're going through the same problems that every late night TV talk show host is going through, trying to figure out how to get to their network without driving downtown in New York City.
Here's the thing that you got to figure out. We've got quorum requirements for all these meetings. So if we know how many delegates are with it, like for instance, Wake County has 206 precincts, and we had 160 or 70 of them organized. You have to have 50% plus one of those precincts in order to be organized at a convention. At a CEC meeting, it's different. Okay, at the district conventions, you've got to have at least one delegate present from 50% plus one of the counties. Right. Well, Wake County, that doesn't matter this year because the second congressional district, I'm a second congressional district member, is all Wake County, except for a little bit of northern Wake County, which is part of the fourth. So as long as we have a certain number of delegates here, we're good, right? Okay. When we have the state convention, it's 50% plus one of, so you have one delegate from each of 50 of 100 counties plus one more delegate, boom, you're done, right? So, but I don't know how they're going to do that. What if people start calling in or logging in or whatever to these things, and it turns out like the Iowa caucuses? See, there's a thing. Iowa had 4 years to get ready for that, right? And at the last minute, there's still a bunch of politicos are running around trying to figure out what to do, keeping things secret. Nobody's practicing. Nobody's training. And so when the shit hit the fan there, they decide, we're going to go to plan B. They put it on Facebook or whatever. Here's the phone number and here's the PIN number to use to call in to report your records. And the Trumpsters started calling in and bombing that. So, this is why I said, don't be thinking the most important thing in the world is to hit these target dates. Come up with a plan, test the plan, make sure it works out with, a small group of people and a larger group of people, an even larger group of people. Make sure all that works, and make sure that you have a plan B for those people who don't have the latest and greatest technology. Which we're about 10 days out from the convention, and they still haven't done that yet.
Well, they have. They just kept it secret. Chris, we got to go.
All right. Take care, sir.
Do you know how we end the show? Do you remember?
I
will say 2 words. you get the last word. You will understand what it is when I'm done.
Yeah.
So you are Chris Teleska. Okay, there's your name. Here's my name. I am Gary Pierce. Not that Gary Pierce for you Democrats out there. I'm a different Gary Pierce. If you don't recognize my face, I mean, really, you really should. And it's been episode 83. We've done politics. April 14th, 2020. Vote Biden. Maybe. By mail. Maybe. We're going to go away. Over and
out.
See, everybody knows how to do that. See ya.